New schools are more antiseptic. They have very little feeling. You know, when you walk into that little classroom down there, the feeling comes out the walls. It's in the walls of all that education. 150, 175 years. It's something that for people, you know, an elderly person in the town would walk in there and they go in there to vote during election time, and they look around, and if you stood there you'd see it in their faces. I was here before.
Ní bheidh a le héad ann arís. There will never be the same again.
I can't remember much about the first day in school, bar the smells of the school and of course Sister Paula's face, because she was my first teacher and just like an angel from heaven. Everybody had the same thing to say about her, the smile on her face, and you just remembered this lovely figure that met you every morning and was so welcoming. You know, I look back now and think that they were tremendous women, really. They had great vision for education, really, from nothing. And that was borne out. We had Sister Helen Hyland and, you know, taking on a band and having the foresight to see where she needed to go with it and making sure it happened. They were tough women, you know, but then they had a tough job to do.
Nobody cares what you know, but they know when you care. And that would have been one of the, you know, the things that struck me about the staff when I was there. There was teamwork of care, and that's so important.
You know, when I think back, I could nearly trace, I was looking and I said, maybe I have 5 generations of us that were schooled down there, and probably 6, possibly 6 generations, you know, and that's a long time.
I often laugh and I say to Sister Kathleen Collison when I meet her that I think I'm an honorary member of the Presentation Order.
There should be something done with it to keep it in the town, because that was a very prominent part of the town growing up. And I'd love to see something being done with the building and kept, you know, solid historical building like that shouldn't be left. I think it'll have a huge effect on the footfall of the town, where you had the people that walked, say the mammy's bringing to school or drive and park up in the square. We're not going to have that anymore. They're now going to be going out of town, so I don't know if it's going to impact on the shops and the town, where we won't have the customers, you know, the people walking by, busy. I think it'll have a huge impact.
Well, I think it is sad that it's moving out from the town, the centre of town. It is a hub of activity there. And when the secondary school closed, you know, business around the main street felt that.
I suppose I asked myself when I pull up there, I say, where have they all gone? That it's a death. All the people from St. Bridget's that you meet coming uptown and going home, parking their cars, going into Shaw's, in and out of the shops, all the conversations. If the streets could talk, that'd be a great story.
I started school at the time around 5.5. My mother brought me down to the convent, as it was known at the time as the halfpenny babies. My mother often told me that the nuns at that time were mistresses. They weren't called sisters, they were called misses. It was only later in years that he all took these names, you know, religious names. The missus after became Sister Benignus, Sister Vincent, Sister George. I was there in that classroom, I think, for about 15 months, I'd say, you know, in that one classroom. And then eventually you were brought on to what we call the middle of the vision. That was where the catechism and all like that you had to be made the year after the communion. And at that time, you won't get many people to talk about it, but that every May at that time, were brought out to walk around the garden to the convent. A maid procession is what they called it. But at that time, the procession in the convent was the main thing. Eventually they brought it out onto the main street. That used to be a great day. It'd be a great day for all the school. You see everybody from the school are going down to the convent grounds, you know. When the apples and things come out in the convent at that time, the gardens, now it was not like today. I think there's 1 or 2 apple trees still there, I think now. But at that time, the whole garden was full of apple trees. You were brought down and you were picking apples and all that. The nuns would be going to make apple tart and all like that inside in the school. And every day, anybody that had nothing, like ourselves, now I did through it, we were brought down to dinner in the yard. And you got a bun, a slice of brown bread, with a bit of jam, might be scraped across, a bit of jam, and a mug of bubble. And when none asked you to do a message tour on the town, you got an extra slice of bread.
No one will see the like of it like again. We'd have nothing any further. The way they started things. You know, choirs and for the kids and that. And then in school we were taught everything, you know, that needn't have been housework, like doing things, making things. So that helped. I had to give it to you as comfort. There was none I didn't like. I loved Mother Columba. I loved Mother Philomena. She always used to go up that stairs. She had a class up there. She was tall. She was lovely.
It was my whole life. School in Portlaoise was my whole life. And I remember leaving during that summer holidays to go to the new assignment. That was harder than retirement. Leaving Portlaoise was the hardest part of it, because you just put down roots wherever you land first or wherever you live first. And moving from Portlaoise was like the end of the world for me. I felt I died partly that day.
Tá ad an lá, tagan an tróna. Everything has to come to an end, everything. No matter how long it is, all things come to an end. And you know, those of us that have the good memories will treasure the memories, and those of you that are learning about it will treasure hearing what your mums or your dads or your grannies did in those places.
The sisters were fantastic. You know, they were very, very generous. They looked after the poor. They were great educators. And we have to salute them. You know, there is change again, but you adapt. The human psyche, you know, we're created, you know, to take on change, to manage it, and to make the best of things.
I started in primary school in 1954. I started in the convent in the what was known then, and still is maybe, as the Halfpenny Babies Room. And the two things that come into my mind immediately are slates. We wrote on slates with chalk. Also, right around the room, around the perimeter of the room, I remember particularly well, on strings. The nuns had actually kept spools from thread. They must have done an awful lot of sewing, because there were millions of thread spools, all painted in beautiful different colours. They all went as far as 10, if I remember. It would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, blue. Then there'd be 1 to 10 in pink and 1 to 10 in green. For some reason, that is my dominant memory of the convent. I remember the change coming. I remember when nuns, like in my time, they all had these, what they call wimples, and it was a huge thing to see a nun's hair. The big this is not when I'd gone to the brothers. The question was, had a nun got hair? You know, and there were various theories like that the heads had to be shaved before because you never saw a nun's hair. And certainly in my brief time in the convent, I never remember seeing a nun's hair. But I do remember the change. I do remember when they stopped kind of dressing specifically, particularly in the black and white, and they'd be out, and they began to wear kind of, very slowly, they began to wear normal, so to speak, clothes. I remember that happening. But they were seen as unearthly creatures, nuns were. There's no doubt about that. They were a different, there were men, women and nuns. You know, we just saw them totally differently. And which is interesting because we didn't see Christian brothers like that.
Congregations, they have journeys, they move, and there's an apex and there's a sinking, and that's the way it is with life. Like, you move towards the apex of life and then things fade away, something new takes its place, and the new is amazing. And this is, we're living now in this middle space where absolutely wonderful things can happen if we stay with the process. And we have, as older sisters, we have a role to play. So I hope we'll be able to do it. And I can see a future for Presentation Sisters, but not so much for as we know it today, but for the charism of Nano being carried into the future.